he asked us to come in and take a look at his business because he was frustrated. He wasn't moving forward. His revenue wasn't where it needed to be, and certainly his profit wasn't there. Tom here again with Elevating My Business. And we talked to you today about some examples of what we do. We're currently working with a health provider. He is a solo health provider, and he has a staff of about 4 people, including an additional revenue center, which is another health provider. So he asked us to come in and take a look at his business because he was frustrated. He wasn't moving forward. His revenue wasn't where it needed to be, and certainly his profit wasn't there. So we said we would help him out, of course, and we want to help every entrepreneur and every business owner. His revenue was around $1.3, $1.5 million a year, and his profit was around anywhere from 15 to 20%. However, over the past few years, that had been dropping some, and he was concerned about that. And he did not want to get to the point where he was having to infuse money into the company to make payroll and pay for supplements and products and stuff like that in order to have retail. So we went in and we took a look at it, and what we found is almost textbook. He was essentially a bottleneck in his business. He was making all the decisions, and he was constantly concerned about what his staff was doing. In other words, were they doing exactly what he wanted them to do, although they weren't very clear about that? And which brings up another point in that your staff must be clear about their roles and about their functions so that they can, with certainty, move through their roles, generate the product for the owner for monitoring purposes. So the owner at the time we came in was monitoring the people that were working for him. He was also performing the services. He was a revenue center, which, man, that's a hard place to be, because when you're not there and you're a revenue center, then the revenue doesn't do so well. So what we did was we first off went and worked with the owner to make sure that he had his paradigms, that he had his programs that were running in his subconscious mind about, limiting beliefs and things like that, and misconceptions about his business and how to deal with his staff. So we handled that. We wrote standard operating procedures. One of those being staff roles. Every one of the staff has a written description of what they're supposed to be doing. And this business had been operating almost like a family without any written documentation for years. And now it got to the point where something had to change. And what has to change is at the top. So we dealt with the owner first. We helped him get clarity on what his role was, and more specifically, that he could step away from the business and the business would still make money, which means, he doesn't have to be there all the time. So he steps more into an owner's position as opposed to an operator and being a revenue center. Although he's still a revenue center, and we're still working on that. However, he's able to step back a little bit now, so he works 4 days a week instead of 5. And he's able to go to conferences and gather additional information in order to enhance his practice. So those are 2 things right there that we help to settle the chaos within the company itself so that everybody knows their role and they feel confident, so that when performance evaluations come up, and that was another thing that they didn't have was performance evaluations. And those performance evaluations are connected to an increase in pay or additional time off or possibly disciplinary action, because they're not doing things that they should be doing once they knew what to do. So those are big things right there that took the owner out of being a bottleneck. And another factor in this is delegation in those roles and responsibilities that we wrote up in and assisted him. And by the way, we had input from the staff. That is incredibly important because you need buy-in, and we needed buy-in so that the systems that we helped the owner install and he was behind and confirmed would work. Because if you don't have buy-in from your clients, if you don't have buy-ins from the owner, if you don't have buy-ins from the people actually performing the work, then all of our work is for nothing. And the client, the owner, has spent money, but he's not implementing. If, as you employ a business coach, that's the purpose of having them, is to do what they recommend to do and then monitor the results. So in terms of monitoring our results, we have weekly meetings with the staff to make sure, is there anything we can do to help you? Is there anything you're confused about? Is there anything you feel needs to change so that you can do your job so much better and increase the enthusiasm and the camaraderie among the staff members so that they cover for each other without having to be asked. And essentially it does form a collaboration, but not necessarily a family environment, because this is a work environment. So those are a couple of things like that can help your business. And if you're interested in more information about the kind of things I'm talking about here, is type in the word Bottleneck, Bottleneck, and we'll get you the Business Bottleneck quiz. Very short, but it asks some very pertinent questions and helps you to think about how you want to run your business and improve its profitability.